When verifying identities, here are a few things that you can do. First, look to factor and expression. Whether it's a greatest common factor, or perhaps it might be factoring a trinomial into two binomials, or even the difference of two squares. Look to factor. Another thing to do is look to add or subtract fractions. So when you can add fractions, look for common denominators. What you're doing is you're taking two terms and you're combining them to be one term, which can help you attain your goal. Look to square a binomial. Square a binomial. An example would look to FOIL. You have a binomial squared. A plus b squared is equal to a squared plus 2ab plus b squared. So look to maybe square a binomial. Sometimes that will help you reach your goal as well. Or to create a monomial denominator. Create a monomial. A monomial is a single term. So a monomial denominator. A monomial is when you have one term. This involves multiplying by the conjugate. Involves multiplying by the conjugate. You also want to look to use fundamental identities. Look at the opposite side of the identity to see what you need to end up with. And last but not least, always try something. Always try something. Dead ends will lead you somewhere. So a dead end will give you insights to another problem. So always try something. Okay, here's our first example. We have a left-hand side of an equation and a right-hand side of the equation. We want to verify that the left-hand side is the same exact thing as the right-hand side. We cannot move things from one side of the equation to the other. We have to pick one side of the equation and transform it so that it looks like the other side of the equation. So we have the left-hand side, which I think is going to be a little bit easier for us to work with. So I'm going to start there. The sine of x plus cosine of x, quantity squared, is going to equal 1 plus the sine of 2x. And for every step, I can continue to put 1 plus the sine of 2x because I'm not going to be changing it. I'm going to take the left-hand side and I'm going to expand it. The sine of x plus the cosine of x times the sine of x plus the cosine of x. And there you see there's that FOIL that we have. When we multiply that out, we're going to get sine times sine is sine squared of x. We're going to get the outer sine times cosine, the inner sine times cosine. So we're going to have two of those, 2 sine of x, cosine of x. And then we're going to have the last, which is cosine squared of x. Now I see right away that sine squared of x plus cosine squared of x is 1. So I'm going to rewrite that, sine squared of x plus cosine squared of x plus 2 sine of x cosine of x. And that's going to equal the right-hand side, which is not changing. sine squared of x plus cosine squared of x is 1, and 2 sine of x cosine of x is sine of 2x. So we have 1 plus the sine of 2x. And like I said before, the more you know your identities, the easier it will be to go from one step to the next. Without knowing your identities, you're probably spending much more time going from one step to the second step than I've spent right here. So it all comes down to your skills with algebra, and it comes to how well you know your identities. The left-hand side is exactly the same thing as the right-hand side. Therefore, we have verified our identity.